Are you starting Genshin Impact in 2025? Are you feeling lost? Don't worry, I've got you covered. This is the only guide you'll ever need, breaking down everything step by step. Whether you're a casual player or aiming to be free to play strong, I'll walk you through everything from your first moments in the game to long-term success. We'll cover Primogem farming, the best free characters, combat, and the best ways to progress as a free-to-play player. So let's get started. And also for the purpose of this video, I decided to make a new Genshin account to walk you through the gameplay. So let's go. Okay, so starting off with Chapter 1, your first steps in Teyvat. So when you first start the game, you'll need to choose between Aether, which is a male, and Lumine, who's a female. So this will be your traveler character, your main character in the game that will be going through stories and everything. This choice is like purely cosmetic, as both characters have the same type of abilities. You can also change their name, so it would be basically unique to you and what you like, but through the story they're mainly just gonna call you Traveler. So after an intense opening cutscene where you basically lose your twin, you wake up in Teyvat and then you meet Paimon, which is your cheerful and sometimes very sassy travel companion. So when you first get in the game, your first goal will basically be exploration. Unlike many RPGs, Genshin Impact allows you to climb, swim, and glide anywhere that you want, but you want to keep an eye out on your stamina bar. This is very crucial. So running out of your stamina while swimming can lead to drowning, so plan your movements very carefully. As you explore, you'll find different statues around the map. These are basically called the statues of the Seven. These unlock different parts of the map and can also heal your team if your team health is low. Activating these statues is very crucial for navigation because you're not going to know where to go, but also make sure to collect your oculi. When you first start the game, the main oculi that you are going to be using is Anemoculus. So this is going to be used to upgrade your statues. It's going to give you different sigils from mondstadt and stamina increases, okay? You'll need that later. This is very, very important. Here are some beginner tips when you first start in the game. Pick up everything that you see. Materials found in the world will be essential for crafting, cooking, and then upgrading later. So anything that you find in the world, make sure you pick it up. My first mistake when playing this game for the first time was not utilizing my ability to pick up everything. I didn't know how much I needed resources until I played further in the game, so just make sure you pick up everything. Next, unlock teleport waypoints. So when you unlock your Statue of the Seven, you'll notice these little icons here on your map. These are teleport waypoints. You can find them on your map, you can go to them, and you can unlock them. And when you unlock them, you get Primogems, which is good. But then you can also mainly use it to teleport to different areas of the map. So you won't be running millions and millions of miles away to try and get to where you need to go. So I recommend unlocking these. Also, don't rush the story. Enjoy it. The first mistake I made was rushing the story because I was very impatient. I didn't want to read anything. Now I barely know anything about the Genshin story. I have to read it through blog posts and forums. So I recommend just sitting through the story, enjoy the experience, and, take your time to explore and gather resources. Alright, so moving on to Chapter 2, arriving in Mondstadt and learning combat. So your first destination in Teyvat is going to be Mondstadt, the city of freedom. Along the way you'll meet Amber, which is a pyro character. Pyro basically means fire, so she's a fire character. She's also an archer, so she's going to be able to join your team for free when you first start the game. And then she's going to also be the one that introduces you to the combat basics. Genshin Impact's combat system revolves around elemental reactions. So every character has their own elemental skill and elemental burst, and combining elements can lead to powerful effects. So here are a couple of examples of that. So we have Pyro, and then we have Hydro. So Pyro, like I said before, is fire, and Hydro is water. Putting these two together will result in Vaporize, so this deals increased damage. Then we have Cryo and Electro, which is ice and electricity. Putting these two together results in Superconduct, so this lowers enemy defenses. Then we have Dendro and Electro. Dendro is basically this green stuff here. Putting these two together will create Aggravate, and it boosts Electro damage. Then lastly, we have Anemo, which is what your Traveler is wielding when you first start the game, so that's Wind. And then putting any element with your Anemo character will result in a Swirl, so this spreads any type of elemental effect. What I do recommend is putting Anemo and Pyro together when you first start fighting enemies in the game, because it just deals increased damage, and I really recommend it for beginners. So yeah, now moving on to Amber. So using Amber's charged bow shots allows you to shoot down flying enemies and also solve puzzles when you first start the game. You'll also fight your first boss, which will be a Ruin Guard, and you'll learn to target its weak points to basically stun it. Here are a couple of combat tips that I have for you. So make sure you switch between your characters to trigger your elemental reactions for max damage. Then use charge shots and headshots for bonus damage against certain enemies. So if you're fighting a healer churl, make sure you use like Amber's bow to focus on a headshot, and that'll deal like more damage to your enemies and also, save you a lot of time. And then lastly, always keep a healer or a shield character in your team to survive longer in battles, okay? You're gonna need a healer. I don't know how many times I have died in boss fights and during quests because I didn't have a healer on my team. I don't know how I managed to survive in the first couple of quests in Genshin Impact and progress as far as I did without a healer on my team. So make sure you utilize both healers and shield characters so that your team can, progress faster and make it longer through the game. Now it's time for Chapter 3, How to Get Free Primogems. As a free-to-play player, Primogems are your most valuable currency. These can be used for summoning new characters and weapons. I plan on making a video about this soon, but right now I'm just going to give you a basic summary of how you can farm Primogems. The first way is through daily commissions. You can complete 4 simple tasks every day, and it gives you 60 Primogems. Next would be opening chests. Luxurious and precious chests can give you 40 Primogems each. They look like this and like this. Adventure rank rewards. You can also earn Primogems as you level up. Next would be achievements. You can unlock rewards for completing in-game milestones. Here are a couple of examples of achievements you can complete. Now, limited time events. During the time of recording this video, the Lantern Raid event has been going on, so you can earn free Primogems, free Intertwined Fate, and a bunch of other items as well. These events can often provide free pulls and characters. Lastly, the Spiral Abyss. Floors 9 to 12 contain endgame content, so that grants massive Primogem rewards. Here's like a free-to-play strategy that I would recommend. Save your Primogems for limited banners, as they feature stronger characters. Do not waste them on the standard banner. You'll naturally get those characters over time. And one way you can get your Acquainted Fate is through leveling up and ascending your characters. Chapter 4, Best Free Characters and Team Building. You can actually get some great free characters that you can carry through most content. Here are the best ones and how to use them. First up would be Zhongling. She's a pyro character and she uses the pole arm, which is basically like a staff. She's free from the Spiral Abyss, and she's great for Pyro DPS and support. Next would be Barbara. She's Hydro, and she's a Catalyst, which means she uses a book when she's fighting. And she's also a free healer. Like I said before, you always want to have a healer on your team, and having Barbara would be essential for your survival. Next would be Kaya. So he's Cryo, and he's a sword user. You're able to get Kaya through the beginning of your journey when you first start Genshin Impact, so you don't really have to worry about pulling for him or anything like that. Next would be Kali. She's Dendro, and she's a bow user. I'm not really that much of a fan of bow users, but if you guys want to try her out, she's a free Dendro support, and she's great for Aggravate and Bloom teams. Lastly, Noelle. She's a Geo character, and she uses Claymore, so she has a decent Geo shield, and she's also a backup healer. Here's an idea for a solid beginner free-to-play team. It could be the Animal Traveler, plus Zhongling, then Kali, then Barbara. This allows for strong Vaporize and Bloom reactions for damage. Now time for Chapter 5, how to progress fast without wasting resources. So one of the biggest mistakes beginners make is wasting resources. So here's what you should and should not do. Do not level up every character. Focus on your core team first. Your core team is the most important team that you're going to have throughout Genshin and how you progress, especially through the Archon quests and the storyline. So you want to focus on your core team first. Every character can come later. Do not spend Primogems on the standard banner. As I said before, you're going to get Acquainted Fate just by ascending your characters. So you don't need any Primogems to spend on a standard banner unless you really, really want to. I recommend only using Intertwined Fates on limited banners. Do not waste Fragile Resin too early. Save it for AR-15 or artifact farming. This is super important. If you use up your Fragile Resin too quickly, it could take a really long time to regenerate, and some people don't want to waste that much time, or they're not as patient, so don't waste your Fragile Resin. Now here are some do's. Prioritize leveling your main DPS and supports. Your supports are going to be the most important characters in your game, so you want to max out their healing abilities and prioritize leveling them up, so that way you can progress faster. Use Stardust for Intertwined Fates in the shop. Stardust is basically this type of currency that you get every time you wish for a character. So whenever you wish for a character, you get some type of Stardust. So you could use that to buy more Intertwined Fates. Upgrade talents alongside weapons and artifacts. Your talents are super important as well. If you want to be able to really max out your damage and your elemental abilities, you have to max out your talents. This is where you can find them. Chapter 6, Mastering Combat and Elemental Reactions. To get better in combat, you need to master elemental interactions. Here are a couple examples. So first would be the Swirl, which is animal plus any element that you decide to use, and this basically spreads effects across all your enemies. Next would be Overloaded, which is a combination of Pyro plus Electro. This gives you explosive AoE damage and can be super useful in teamfights. Next would be Freeze, which is Cryo plus Hydro. This can stop enemies in place and allow you to actually do an exponential amount of damage. Lastly would be Bloom, which would be Dendro plus Hydro. This creates Dendro cores that explode and do additional damage. Here could be a combat strategy that could be useful for you to use. Rotate your characters to keep the reactions going. Use crowd control characters, which would probably be maybe your Animal Traveler or Sucrose, for group fights. Dodge enemy attacks instead of tanking the damage. You don't want to tank it. You want to always dodge your enemy attacks, so that way you can always find a different way to hit them. Now it's time for Chapter 7, your long-term free-to-play strategy. Genshin Impact is a long-term game, and patience is definitely the key here. So maximize your free-to-play journey by logging in daily to get your free rewards, saving Primogems for maybe meta characters. Definitely try researching maybe some upcoming banners that are coming up or some characters you would want to save for. Join co-op to farm bosses faster. And use free event weapons. Some are even as strong as 5 stars. And that's everything you need to know as a beginner in 2025. If you guys want a lengthier part 2, let me know in the comments below. But if this guide helped you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more free-to-play friendly Genshin guides. Now go out and explore Teyvat and start farming those Primogems.